In today's world of television broadcasting, internet news, and social media, it is hard to discern the truth from fiction. Although we want to believe the reports we watch or hear, there are voices all around us giving differing accounts and opinions. It has not always been that way, however. When television was new and internet had not yet been invented, there was one voice in American broadcasting that stood out. Walter Cronkite was the anchorman for the CBS Evening News from 1962 to 1981 and was often cited as the most trusted man in America. Walter Leland Cronkite Jr. was born on November 4, 1916, in St. Joseph, Missouri, the son of Helen Lena and Dr. Walter Leland Cronkite, who was a dentist. His last name was a result of Dutch ancestry on his father's side. The family surname was originally Cronkite. Although he would go on to travel the world, Cronkite remained proud of his Missouri roots and always considered Kansas City his home. Because he was naturally curious, he kept a notebook throughout his youth to record daily observations and often researched in encyclopedias to learn more about subjects that interested him. Since his parents struggled financially, Walter worked many odd jobs to make extra money. Although he was born in St. Joseph, Walter and his family lived in Kansas City, Missouri until he was 10. As a boy, Cronkite was an avid reader of books, magazines, and newspapers. In 1927, his family moved to Houston, Texas, where his father took a position at the University of Texas Dental School. During that time, Walter read an article in American Boy magazine about the adventures of reporters working around the world. While attending junior high school at Lanier Junior High School and high school at San Jacinto High School, he worked on the school newspaper in both schools and was an editor of the high school newspaper. He decided to become a journalist after reading a magazine article about a foreign correspondent. His interest did not lie solely in journalism, though, as he was said to have joined the Boy Scouts, kept a paper route for the Houston Post, rode with the cowboys at a local ranch, and even built his own neighborhood telegraph network. In 1928, he got his first real taste of politics when he attended both the Democratic National Convention in Houston and the Republican National Convention in Kansas City. After graduating from high school, he studied political science at the University of Texas at Austin from 1933 to 1935. In order to help pay his tuition, he worked as a correspondent for a Houston newspaper, the Houston Post. He also worked on the Daily Texan, the newspaper for the University of Texas at Austin. He dropped out of college in his junior year in the fall term of 1935 after starting a series of newspaper reporting jobs covering news and sports to work full-time for the Houston Post. He entered broadcasting as a radio announcer for WKY in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. In 1936, he met his future wife, Mary Elizabeth Maxwell, who was often called Betsy, while working as the sports announcer for KCMO AM in Kansas City, Missouri. His broadcast name was Walter Wilcox. He would explain later that radio stations at the time did not want people to use their real names for fear of taking their listeners with them if they left. In 1939, Cronkite became a news editor for the United Press. When the United States entered World War II in 1941, the United Press assigned Cronkite to be an overseas war correspondent. His duty was to cover fighting in the North Atlantic. He was soon reassigned to London, where he reported on German bombing raids on the city. Cronkite also covered the invasion of North Africa. Cronkite was one of 8 journalists selected by the United States Army Air Forces to fly bombing raids over Germany in a B-17 Flying Fortress as part of a group called the Riding 69th. In 1944, he reported on the Allied landing on the beaches of Normandy, France on D-Day. After the war's conclusion, he remained in Europe covering the Nuremberg trials and helping set up numerous United Press bureaus, including those in Amsterdam and Brussels. Before returning to the United States, he served as United Press Bureau Chief in Moscow from 1946 to 1948. During this time, Cronkite attracted the attention of Columbia Broadcasting System, better known as CBS, Vice President Edward R. Murrow. In 1943, he was offered and turned down a job working for CBS in Moscow. However, in 1950, Murrow recruited him to be a correspondent for the CBS television affiliate in Washington, D.C. Joining CBS News in 1950, he worked on a variety of programs and covered national political conventions and elections. He originally served as an anchor of the network's 15-minute late Sunday evening newscast, Up to the Minute. He was named anchor of the CBS Evening News in 1962. The program expanded from 15 to 30 minutes on September 2, 1963, making Cronkite the anchor of American Network Television's first nightly half-hour news program, where he served as news anchor until his retirement in 1981. He was well known for his style of honesty, and particularly in level-headedness. The saying, "and that's the way it is," was his trademark nightly sign-off. He was identified in public opinion polls as the man Americans most trusted because he provided a voice of reason during Vietnam and Watergate eras. From 1953 to 1957, Cronkite hosted the CBS program You Are There, which reenacted historical events using the format of news report. His famous last line for these programs was, "What sort of day was it? A day like all days, filled with those events that alter and illuminate our times. And you were there." Another of his network assignments was The Morning Show in 1954. This was supposed to be the CBS challenge to NBC's Today. His on-air duties included interviewing guests and chatting with a lion puppet named Charlemagne about the news. Surprisingly, Cronkite is said to have considered this conversation with a puppet as one of the highlights of the show, due to the fact that puppets could say things no anchorman could get away with. Cronkite was privileged to have reported on many of the pivotal stories of the 60s and 70s, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the battles over civil rights, the Vietnam War, the Apollo moon landings, and the Watergate scandal. Cronkite stepped down from the anchor desk at CBS News in 1981. 3 years later, the journalism school at Arizona State University was named in his honor. He returned to campus each year to talk with students and present the Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism. Although he was retired, Cronkite did not drop out of sight. After retiring in 1981, he hosted CBS's Universe, co-produced Why in the World for Public Broadcasting System, and hosted Dinosaur for the Arts and Entertainment cable television. In 1993, Cronkite formed his own production company and produced several award-winning documentaries for the Discovery Channel, the Public Broadcasting Service, PBS, and other networks. He also did a special short series for CBS and the Discovery Channel in 1996 called Cronkite Remembers. In addition to his television work, Cronkite wrote several books, including Around America in 2001. His 1996 autobiography, A Reporter's Life, was a bestseller. He also signed on to do the voice of Ben Franklin in a new PBS animated series, Liberty Kids. As a newsman, Cronkite devoted his attention to the early days of the space program and the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration honored Cronkite on February 28, 2006, by presenting him with the Ambassador of Exploration Award. Cronkite was the first non-astronaut to have been honored in this way. During his distinguished career, Cronkite won numerous other awards, including the prestigious Peabody Award twice and several Emmy Awards, as well as the George Polk Award and a Gold Medal Award from the International Radio and Television Society. In 1981, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Jimmy Carter. Before his death, he received the News World International's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2003 and the 2004 Harry S. Truman Good Neighbor Award from the Truman Foundation. In 2005, Cronkite's beloved wife Betsy died of cancer at the age of 89. 4 years later, in mid-2009, Cronkite was reported to be ill with cerebrovascular disease. He died at his home in New York City on July 17, 2009, at the age of 92. He was buried next to his wife at their family cemetery plot in Kansas City, Missouri.